He does have cute pants.
He has cute. That means something else. That means something else.
I just thought about that.
Yeah.
trousers.
Welcome everybody to the digital download. We're here talking about little bits of digital that we've learned. I was thinking today, I'm not sure if this is a trickle down or a build up of digital skills, but somewhere along the line, the whole point of this is that we all learn something about digital. Each of us brings something that we've learned this week, and we share it with you. And then you go away with a little bit more digital knowledge. This week we've got Danielle. I think I've been pronouncing your surname wrong probably for the whole of my life.
I had to tell him.
You outed me.
I outed you. Yeah, I had to tell him.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining in, and Alistair as well. Let's just get into the introductions. I'm going to go around my screen. So Lenwood.
Hello, I'm Linwood Ross, founder and CEO of Accelerate. We are accelerating your digital transformation through people. Woohoo!
Oh, here's Brentley. Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric from Crux, and I hang about with this gang and try and keep out of mischief.
And he's got a Scottish scarf on as well. Just
as a pretty important game on tomorrow with some other team. Scotland are playing some other team. I don't really in the Rugby Six Nations, which is a fabulous rugby tournament.
Will I am.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm William Shorten. I run my business, William Shorten Learning Solutions, where I'm a learning consultant and executive coach, and I'm also an associate of DLA with Tim and Adam, and I'm based in Rugby in the UK, which is where the game was born. So that's the connection to
William Rebeles.
Yeah.
Danielle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Danielle Guzman from I'm based in Brooklyn, the global head of social media for Mercer. Honored to be here today, and what a coincidence that everyone's wearing a scarf.
Isn't it?
Yes.
It must be cold. Everyone's heat's off this morning.
Rob.
It's warm in the Northeast.
Hey all, I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results. We are a sales enablement, and boutique staffing consultancy.
Okay. And Adam.
Hi everyone, I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner at DLA Ignite, and thrilled to be wearing a scarf.
And Brent.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Hutchinson, the Director of Digital Transformation at Little Bird. Danielle, it's nice to meet you, and happy to be here. And happy it's Friday. Very happy it's Friday.
Who wants?
And it's good to see Cheryl here talking about the rugby already. Come on, Wales.
Absolutely. Does anyone want a joke just to lighten?
Yes. So you've got a joke, haven't you, Eric?
Would you
Lighten
like
it
a joke?
even more.
It's dreadful, but it made me chuckle. Do you know that if you were to go to Antigua and buy a chicken pie, it would cost you £3.20? If you then got on a boat and went to St. Lucia, a mince pie or a minced beef pie would cost you £2.65. If you went to Barbados and bought a steak pie, that would cost you £3.35. That, my friends, is the pirates of the Caribbean. Well,
Yeah, just go. Close the door on your way out.
That was horrible.
horrible.
I loved it, Eric.
Thank you.
So Danielle, welcome. Thank you for popping on and being our guest. I did throw some questions at you, and I wanted to do something that was not to do with social. I wanted to actually talk about things like the Great Resignation, work and stuff like that. And I would love to get your perspective on it and share it with us. And we'll chat and debate it.
That sounds great. Let's do it.
Yeah, big time.
Okay, good. Thank you. The floor is yours.
The floor is mine. I think you wanted to talk about the Great Resignation, kind of more broadly, and just work and what's happening. And I thought it was a great topic to chat about because I think all of us here, regardless of our form of employment, are a part of that conversation. Absolutely. And I kind of think, in my perspective, that this is a long time coming when we think about just the way we all work, for as long as I know at least. in my career, there's been long-standing traditions, and those traditions date back for years and years and decades. And the question is why? Everything else around us is changing. I mean, every day we live in a state of change that is faster than the day prior, yet the way we work has more or less remained constant. So whilst the pandemic has kind of been super, challenging and on many levels a huge travesty, at the same time, there's some silver linings that have come out of that. And part of that, I think, is human empowerment and really a stop to start thinking about why do we do things the way we do them, and can we do them better, and can we create a more inclusive and equitable society in the world of work, and to really make a work a part of our lives rather than fit our lives around the way we work.
Wow.
Yeah, here. I love that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I actually heard something from, I was talking to a prospect yesterday, and they said that what happened for them was that they were used to selling to the same people all the time. It was and each of the sales people had their little black book of contacts. And he said that 50% of the people that they were selling to have just gone, disappeared. They said, I'm not doing this anymore. So they've got this situation as a business where, there's an expectation that we're going to grow and as a business, but actually the customers, what they had have just gone.
Yeah, interesting. When you,
I suppose the concept is that 50% have gone, and there's an evolving wheel of, new and startup and growth and development, and then fall away, and that's just constantly repeating, right?
Well, I think there is, but I had a call with somebody earlier today. They're quite successful in the corporate space, and they're on a fast track to being VP in a large corporate. And they were talking about how, well, this isn't their calling. So ultimately, within the foreseeable future, they will leave and they will retrain to do something that actually matters to them. And I think what's really interesting is that when we talk about the big resignation, what we think about is our staff leaving and having to recruit new staff. And we assume that the staff that are leaving are going to go to one of our competitors or to a similar space based on what their career is and where they've been, and therefore that's what they're equipped to do. And actually, I think that what's increasingly happening, further to your point, Danielle, is that people are feeling more empowered. They're saying, actually what I want to be is a gardener. What I want to be is a builder. What I want to be is a musician. And they're leaving their safe corporate jobs and they're going out and chasing their dreams. And instead of doing that when they're in their 20s, they're now doing that when they're in their 40s and 50s. And I think it's wonderful, but clearly it does create challenges for businesses.
I'd actually kind of invert it slightly, Adam, that I think it's almost also people who, 50s and 60s, who perhaps would be thinking, oh, I'm, comfortable, but it's kind of question what they're doing. And now they're deciding, actually, I want to do something and go and chase my dreams rather than just wait for, impending retirement and whatever else that will be. And there was a great article in McKinsey this week, which I posted, which was, in fact, somebody who'd come out of the US forces and was still in the reserve, but she kind of talked about it as a great redeployment in terms of both, at an organizational level, people have been redeployed to work from home rather than work in the office. And also people are redeploying themselves into new areas, as you just suggested.
Yeah, I love that, Will. And I think that's why often the headlines, you make the headlines by saying the Great Resignation, but you also see a lot more content being shared and conversations around like the Great Reimagination or the Great Reset and, the Great Realization. And I kind of think that those, to your point, Adam, start to bring a bigger part to the story, because at the onset, people had to leave because maybe they couldn't manage childcare, or they couldn't manage taking care of other members of their family, or so many other things came into consideration, and then they had to take certain steps. But then we started thinking about kind of that deep dissatisfaction that we had with the ways of working or the way they were now. And the immediate reaction from an employer perspective is more money, start to explore flexibility, different benefits, but then people were like, that's not enough, right? To your point, I want to be a gardener, or this is what I truly want to do and love, and I'm going to find a way to do that and make money doing it. And so now, even from an organization perspective, it becomes a bigger sense of purpose. You got to start thinking about purpose and start thinking about culture and all those other values that wrap around. I read an article a couple weeks ago that, it had stated that even with, as much as a 10% increase in salary, even that's not enough, for a lot of individuals that are looking to either stay or make a move, because whilst obviously compensation is critical, there's a lot more to it than just that. And we need to be starting to think out a much bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. When you think about kind of the pandemic as being the instigator or catalyst for all of this, then that's like a crisis or traumatic moment. So that's the type of thing that causes people not just to reflect about their career, but reflect on their whole life, right? So where employers used to think of, or are used to thinking about employees as, I don't want to say totally as objects, but not really looking at them as whole people, right? So when you think about how to reimagine the whole experience now, that reimagining is including, mental health and wellness, really re-examining how we treat people in terms of childcare and parental leave. I can't recall, someone posted somewhere, I'm on the internet, I'm all over LinkedIn, so that parental leave policy had changed dramatically at some very large company, and now fathers were going to be getting the same leave as mothers, and it was going to be for a much longer period of time. So with human resource departments or people operations, people departments looking at the whole person, I think companies will be able to craft policies that are actually much better for people.
Well, hopefully. I mean, you said, Danielle, flexibility. Mm-hmm. And I think that, even if you love your job, the question is that the extent of your life? It's like saying, I love steak, great, but that doesn't mean I want to eat it every single meal. So maybe I love my job, but I actually want to do it 2 days a week or 3 days a week or 4 days a week, not 6 days a week or 8 days a week or whatever it is. And I think that particularly if it's not your own business, where you haven't got quite the same emotional investment in it, if you want to retain the best people, it's better to have a breathtakingly good person for 3 days a week than a mediocre person for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we are a ways away from this though. This is new, right? This is new.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So on the first hand, we have the fact that there are people sitting there that have been doing jobs for 20 years, that maybe they're an engineer or a project manager or something like that, and they want to be a gardener. But the concept of making that shift is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? All of that family's economy is built around that person's salary and engineering, and for them to walk home and say, "I'm going to be a gardener," is everyone will applaud and then go, "Yeah, but that's great. But you remember, you've still to be an engineer for 20 years more before you do that." That's got to be the majority of the world. The minority must be sitting thinking, hold on a minute. I mean, surely we're not across the 50% yet of people that are in this sort of reimagination period. And then on the other hand, we've got companies that are leading the way with the kind of world that Lenwood was talking about and Adam was talking about. But they've got to be in the minority as well. I mean, I was speaking to a big blue chip client last night who were talking about the fact that they are as developed in this. As in the same position today as they were 20 years ago. They haven't come forward. They talk about it. They talk a great job and they talk some great things and they've put some frills around the edge, but the core's still the same.
But let's wonder. Oh, go ahead, Lenwood.
I was going to say just that's Eric. That's a really interesting point, but I actually don't think that it would actually be incredibly much more problematic than it already is to have 50% of people really embracing this idea of, I'm going to leave this and go do something else. But what we have had is a significant percentage of people. So many baby boomers, right, leaving. And that gap, that significant number of baby boomers leaving the workforce has caused a crisis level of people, a talent gap, right? I think the projection is by 2030, 85 million people will, the difference between what's needed and what is there, 85 million people by 2030. And that's been accelerated by the pandemic, where you have people who are in their 60s and 70s who maybe would have stayed in the workforce longer, but they don't have the same financial restraints. You have a housing situation where they can unload their house at a high, at least in the United States, unload your house at a pretty high premium, go to a cheaper market and be sitting pretty, especially if you're in the Northeast, where housing prices are ridiculous. So anyway, I just think that the combination of factors coming together has just created enough of a gap that it really is a crisis time for corporations in particular. And so that is really driving the wholesale rethinking of how they approach people. I was, and I'll end here. I was talking to a woman who has been advising boards for the last 25 years. And what she told me is that while the board would have thought, address compensation on a regular course, now for the first time she's ever seen, they're addressing the whole thing in terms of thinking about their people, because they have to.
I love the way you.
Sorry, Danielle, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the way you shifted that, Lenwood, because really we've been talking so much about we're reacting to what's happening, and we're trying to figure out how do we react and how do we react fast enough and how do we get ahead of this, when really what's needed is to really start thinking about that gap that you're talking about, and the need to consider, lifelong learning and reskilling, not just of current individuals and leaders, but of future leaders. And that speaks a little bit to what you were saying as well, Eric, in that there is a lot of change, but we're only seeing the outer lining of that onion. Because when you think about it, if you're a large organization, what does it take for you to enable flexibility and freedom to work from anywhere, as we hear a lot about? What does it take to be able to hire in all these different facets? What does it take to hire someone for their skills, not just for a role, but for skills that can move throughout an organization and enable those companies to kind of adapt their business as we go forward through periods of uncertainty, because we no longer can just have a business that does X and assume it's going to sustain. We need to be able to adapt really quickly, and to do that you need an agile workforce, and I think that's a huge opportunity there, which then speaks to potentially becoming that gardener and not being an engineer for so long, because you can now do that 2 days a week in one organization, 1 day a week somewhere else, because their skills are needed, and then they can live the life that they want to lead kind of around that. But that's a long-term kind of vision. I think very little organizations can legitimately say they can do that today.
The big issue, I think, building on what you said there, Danielle, is all around speed and acceleration. Because, to go back to Lenwood's point about the baby boomers, lots of organizations, just through pure demographics, we know that age group of baby boomers is coming up to retirement age. So everybody would have been imagining, we've got to have a plan in place to try to offset this skills gap, this knowledge gap that we're going to have leaving the organization. But what's happened because of COVID is that whole process has accelerated. And it's accelerated at such a point where, first of all, when it first came 2 years ago, people were just in survival mode. What have we got to do to get through till tomorrow? Now they're the dust is beginning to settle, and they're beginning to understand, okay, this has got longer term implications, but they haven't yet caught up with the fact that this is spinning even faster away from them. And, not only have they got to catch up with it, they've got to get ahead of it to start then working back and planning what the implications are going to be and what actions they're going to have to take.
Absolutely. And I'd add one more point to that whole skills. And I love Tom's comment, by the way, talking about that, the talent gap and future skills gap. That's such a great comment that he shared. And that divide is just going to keep widening. And I think one of the things, and I think, Tim, you and I have kind of exchanged on a couple articles we've seen over the past months, where we talk about employee and individuals and the need to close the training gap, build skills. We can't forget the leaders, right? Because at the end of the day, the top of that pyramid is the true north. So those leaders need to deeply believe in the direction that the world of work is going in and live it and embody it and able to bring their people. If they're trying to go back to what was and put the genie back in that bottle and bring everyone back into the office and pretend nothing ever happened, it's really difficult to move an organization and their people in a more kind of futuristic direction. So, and it's hard, right? Change is not a natural behavior for humans. It's really hard.
Yeah, that
to
is.
Your point, I feel like.
Go ahead, Brittany.
I feel like there's really 3 levels. So, you've got the people who want to separate from corporate, want to chase their dreams, and they want to start a business, and they're going to do that no matter what. So, in 2019, I was just done, miserable, unfulfilled, so I left. But I remember thinking, like, not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone really can. Maybe they have a family to support, or not everyone has the means to do that. Or, and like with 75% or 80% of people being unhappy in their jobs, like those people deserve to be happy too. So with the pandemic, now you have like the second level of people who are exploring gig economy, and they're keeping their day jobs, but they're following a passion. They're on Fiverr. They're finding a way to like be able to explore the creative side. But then you still have like a third level of people who they don't want to do that. They just want to work their 9 to 5. They just want to be in corporate. Yep. They deserve benefits. They deserve to be treated like humans. And I think the Great Resignation really should be focusing on those people. And as leaders, you should be structuring your training plans and focusing on that last level of people, because they deserve all the same rights.
But can leaders understand this though? So, you know, we do some work with law firms, for example, and the way that law firms are structured is you join as a junior associate and you work your butt off, and then you become an associate, and then you work 1,500 billable hours plus per year, and you do that for 3 years, and then you want to get to that easy street. You know, you want to become a partner in the business where the people that come in at the bottom push your salary up because you get a slice of the work that they do. And in a lot of organizations, the leader, who's generally an older person, will look at the situation and they'll say, well, I didn't have it that easy, so why should you? Now, I know that that's a rather self-defeating way of thinking about it, but a lot of these people, they're in a position where for them to vote these changes through would be the turkeys voting for Christmas. You know, I worked 2,000 hours a year to get to this point, and now I'm monetizing that by you working 2,000 hours a year. And I'm not going to put an end to that, because then I've got to start working 2,000 hours a year again to get my 7-figure salary or whatever it is. So there's an inherent inertia here that has to be overcome, isn't there?
Yeah. You know, coming from that world, you know, I will tell you that one of the things is easy street doesn't really exist. Even today in big law firms, the partners they're making a ton of money. Don't get me wrong. They're making a ton of money, but they're also working a lot of hours. And I think that, you know, this is why this is such a crazy time. Adam, to your point, there are tons of people out there that are thinking that way. But then there are also these scrappy people who are maybe in millennials or Gen X that are saying there's an opportunity here because we can reimagine this business model and we can deliver this service at a price point that companies want to pay, not $1,200, $1,300 an hour, and we can disrupt these firms. That is happening in every industry. So if you're saying, hey, exactly what you said, if you're someone in executive leadership in an organization and you're saying those statements, that is a sure sign that somebody is coming for you. I mean, somebody is coming for those clients. And we know from our experience in social that it is easier to get at a client today, not that we're going to get, than ever before. So,
Adam, sorry, Leonard, yeah. I think, Adam, to come to your point about, you know, do organizations understand this. Organizations, I think most of them are filled by pretty intelligent people. I mean, they do look and watch and read everything that's going on. So, I think unless they've been burying their heads in the sand for the last 2 years, they know some of these challenges are ahead. I've had experience in big corporations. They can be a little bit recovering addicts. They know there's a problem. They put their hand up. They've gone along to the meeting and said, yes, we've got a problem. The big issue is, how do they overcome that problem? And working out, okay, for us in our context, what are we going to do about that?
Well,
only there was a 12-step program.
Will, you brought it up in your training this week. If you want to kind of explain the idea of reverse mentoring, I thought was pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we've all had examples where we're used to mentoring kind of from a hierarchical position. Somebody who's got experience, sharing it with somebody lower down in the organization who's just come in. Reverse mentoring is something which is getting much more popular, especially for kind of dinosaurs like me, who've got very little kind of technical knowledge. And therefore, it's great to have somebody who's relatively new, who's much more technically able than I am, for example, to suggest how I can adapt to the new technologies, new platforms that are coming out,
or indeed how to plug a mic in.
Indeed.
But we're seeing that the knee-jerk reaction is going on, right? The knee-jerk reaction is because salaries are going up. They're going up, even for people with no experience. Starting salaries in New York, first years out of law school, $200,000.
But is that enough sustainably?
It probably
out of the gate, it probably fills the need, it pays the bills, etc. But are you going to actually build an engaged workforce that is going to stay with you?
No. I mean, it's
yes,
never
you
worked.
are.
It's never not in law.
You are.
How dare you?
In law firms,
I know.
People start leaving within 3 months.
Order.
3 months.
Yes,
school,
you're giving me examples
money, 3 months. They're out.
And that will still happen. But there are more people, the silent majority, that are discontent with their roles and are dealing with the FOMO of this Great Resignation, but are not in a position to do something about it, or at least believe they are not. So we've even said at the beginning of this, we're talking about a small number of people in the whole that are causing these headlines. But will we get that mass exodus? Will it get major adoption? Probably not, because those salaries are going up.
But if salaries
I think that it will not be overnight, but it's flywheel, right? Just enough over time, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and the gig is up.
I think it's more generational, but yes.
Well, I think there's also some learning, right? So we're getting smarter as this goes. So if we look at the U.S., just for example, off the top of my head, I believe like August, September, October, we had over 4 million people a month walking away from their jobs, and they're expecting about 20.
Just say that again. How many people?
Over 4 million people per month in each of August, September, and October in the U.S. And they're expecting approximately 23 or 22%, I think is what I had read, of employees to be also making a move and quitting their jobs in 2022. Now, with that said, organizations at the same time aren't just sitting around. So they're observing and they're learning, they're evolving, right? Leadership is going from traditional to modern. We're no longer just skills building, but we're making learning and development a critical part of our day-to-day. I mean, I can think back 10 years ago, right? We all have our day jobs and we had tasks to do. How often, in fairness, did your manager or your team say you should spend at least 20% of your work just learning personal and professional development? Probably not that often, but we're seeing more and more organizations now making a critical part of the roles because yes, you have some generations that want to relearn, reskill, and evolve into a new direction. You have some that are younger and learning and just coming into the organization, and they're hungry and they want to learn and they don't want to be put in a box. They want to know what their upward mobility is, and they want to have opportunities. So we're seeing that, and I think those are going to come together. So it's going to slow down because we're modernizing. We're thinking about the future, and we're taking that responsibly. Now, to your point, Rob, there's also people who they just need a paycheck. Let's be honest, right? You got to think there's many different reasons why people work, and for those people, I hope they get those raises that are being afforded and put out there because they really need them, and they're at a different stage in their lives. And for those that are graduating out of school, I hope that they find those jobs because a lot of them are coming with some pretty hefty loans. And the idea of the future of work should be that we address the shortcomings of what was. How do we make this more inclusive? We enable everyone to have a part in this new future of work. And how do we enable equity as well? And I think we have kind of a one-time opportunity to really address all of that. And we need to do it right.
Absolutely. So well said. There's so many different things that are happening at the same time. We are really living through an unprecedented period in our history. It's so it can be overwhelming, but at the same time, it's exciting to look and see how companies and people are changing and adapting, becoming more resilient. I think we're on the verge of really just a truly exciting time in human-centric, just everything. Right?
When my son was 16 years old, so a year ago, we were out in the woods, playing in the woods on bikes, and I said to him, philosophical question: what do you fancy doing when you leave school? What are you thinking about as a job? And he said, well, I don't know. This is genuine quote from a 16-year-old person. He said, I don't know, but what I'd like to do is work for a company, not necessarily for them, but I'd like to work for a company like Brewdog. And I said, okay, what, you want to make beer? And he went, no, you don't get me. I want to work for a company like Brewdog because their CEO, James Watt, is very good on social media. So I carried on cycling, and a couple of days later, that sort of smacked me around the head, the importance of that. A 16-year-old kid visioning himself and imagining himself working for a company because their CEO is very open and very... Now, this is before James's troubles. James has had a troubled period in the last year or so, but still lives his life. He's a CEO of a big multinational funky beer corporation that are taking over the world. Just opened in Las Vegas, a big hotel and all that. And there's a 16-year-old kid envisioning himself working for a company like that because the CEO is very good on social. When I was 16 years old, I didn't know what a CEO was. My sphere of vision in the world went as far as I wondered if I could put a bigger wheel in the back of my bike. Seriously.
Bigger forks on the front.
Bigger forks, yeah. How could I do that? If I go to the scrap dealer, can I get better forks? And can I put those forks from a scrambling bike onto my rally grifter? But there's so in isolation that means nothing. Think about that across all the universities and all the colleges in the world where young people who are making decisions about where they're going to go and work. Will I go and work for... Yeah, okay, of course there'll be people that go and work for the sort of older-minded institutions and go and work for those companies, but people are putting their chips down with companies who are living their lives on social, being open about what the culture is, being open about their challenges and all of that. And as much as we talk about qualified relevance, using visibility on social media to qualify relevance from a sales perspective and a growth perspective, that visibility and qualified relevance also works towards potential new recruits and your current employees, right? You're qualifying relevance through visibility to your own employees, to future recruits, and to your markets. It works across the whole piece. Enough said.
Yeah. And you bring up such a great point, Eric, because when we think about, so your son is 16, and I was kind of going through an exercise earlier this week with some colleagues, and we were specifically looking at LinkedIn, right? So that might be the on the lower end of the platforms that your son might be hanging out on right now. But what we're not thinking about is, I think the latest LinkedIn statistic said that the 18 to 29-year-olds on LinkedIn represent almost 30% of the population on this platform right now, watching what we're doing, observing and learning from CEOs and brands. Yet what we would maybe think of as a key decision maker is typically maybe 45 to 65, those that are actually in decision-making roles, which organizations are targeting, they represent less than a quarter. So it's a really big opportunity. And those that are observing and not maybe active in conversations, whether on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or any other channel, is this really young generation. And I think the latest Edelman Trust Report came out and talked about kind of this whole concept of trust and who's trusting who. Well, it's organizations and their employees, it's CEOs that are becoming the more and more kind of leading in the trust factor. And these younger individuals that are determining, where do I go next? What do I want to do? Where, how, why? They're observing all of this. So you're either silent in this conversation or you actually start having a voice to be able to attract and engage that generation that's coming up as our future leaders.
And I think there's a huge percentage of that generation that views the world very differently in this sense. They see that they can have an impact at a very young age, and they can use their social media savvy, or what, I don't want, because we've been beating on social media a little bit, but you know what I'm saying? We've been beating that drum and I want to get away from it. But it truly, they see their ability to have an impact in the world very differently than I think older folks did. And it's because it's true.
Hey, I was just literally minutes before I came on this call, I was speaking to a friend of mine that runs an IT company in Glasgow. He told me that he considered going to do an MBA last year. And in between, when it was able to do that, he went to one of these kind of like, you know, to a local university in Glasgow. Come along, and he's in his 40s, and come along and see what you think. It's kind of like an open day about the MBA. And he went in there in his 40s, and he sat down. And after an hour of this, it was supposed to be 3 hours, he left. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong room. Because a guy stood up and said, hi, I'm Mike. I'm 25 years old. When I was 19, I formed my first startup. I sold it when I was 21, and I'm now on my fifth tech startup company. We do it through social media, and we blah, blah, blah. And I'm here to just, it's my fifth startup, and I think I'm just about getting it now, but I thought this MBA course might help me. Thanks very much. And Stuart said, I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. Sorry.
Yeah, they're thinking and operating at a whole different speed and level. It's really, really remarkable. Their whole mindset is different.
They're going to be having this call talking about why everyone needs to go back into the office. The pendulum swings back. Right now we're here. They're all going to come together, and they're going to rebuild and undo everything that we're doing over the next 10 years.
Yeah. Well, what I hope what happens with the office is that the office is we're more intentional about the office. I'll just leave it at that.
My partner's 25-year-old couldn't wait to get back to the office, and he loves the office because they can go out for beers and stuff in the evening. That's what he likes.
Yeah,
he was the first back in the office.
You've got a diverse workforce. It's not the same for everyone in the workforce, right? So you got kids and all that kind of stuff, like commuting 2 hours or an hour and a half, whatever it happens to be, both ways. Like that's not cool. If you're living in the city and it's walking down the streets, it's a different story.
That is not cool. Not cool at all. Not at all.
That could be very cold, Linwood.
I just realized that Tim's only asked one question.
Yeah, I know.
We got to get to our content.
We got to get Danielle. Thank you so much for today. You can. It's up to you. You can stick around. We're going to go through our content, and we've only got 20 minutes to do it. So we're going to have to whiz for that. You're more than welcome to stay, or you can go. It's up to you.
You know what? I'm going to drop off because I want to go into the audience and chat.
Okay.
And that way I can participate with the content that you guys are all sharing. But thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to see you all this afternoon.
So great to have you.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thanks.
Danielle styled out. No, I'm going to leave really well there. Really well. That was world class.
Yeah, I'm going to get out of here quick.
Yeah, brilliant. What a great guest. What a great guest.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in, Tim, because I know that you want to move on to a whole load of other subjects, but just to kind of put the full stop here, because the article I wanted to share was all about the Great Resignation. And it was actually somebody, again, it just shows the power of this network. I think, LinkedIn, I term it creating serendipitous opportunities. So this was somebody, Chris Rogers, who had been a trainer on a training course, which I went on, and then hadn't been in contact with for about 10 years. And then I happened to see on LinkedIn just before Christmas that he was working in just down the road from where I live. And he was helping out at one of these vaccine pop-up centres that we put in the UK. And so I got in contact with him, and we met up in January, went and had a socially distanced walk nearby. And then he's put together this article about the Great Resignation, and in particular about his own kind of personal story that he's gone through and how it's affected him. But he's also within that article put some kind of thoughts, because he's doing some work with the NHS, the health service in the UK, about how the health service can think about retaining people in the organisation and making life a bit better for them there. So just a kind of final full stop on this subject, I just wanted to share that before we move on to the other topics.
Cool. Thank you. I'm having difficulty sharing my screen.
Oh no.
Would you like me to go? Because mine's
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Mine's quite easy.
You're lined up.
Play my thing.
Hi all, and welcome back.
Well, before I start that, so you're going to think that I'm like a fully paid up member of the Alistair Dickinson fan, which I am really a huge fan of what he does. But Alistair, for those of you who don't know him, Alistair's the CEO of a company, Mapsimize, that do geolocation data. So they help you with your sales by showing you physically the clusters of where it's basically taking all of your data and showing you where you're actually working and allowing you to understand more of this. I guess it's like a metaverse approach to pulling together all of social, all of sales, all of marketing, and all of that, and kind of looking at things in a different way. Alistair, for those that you don't know him, sometimes we feel as if we need to make an intervention in Alistair's life because he's in his office. He's the CEO of a very successful tech company, and he's created these little characters. Some of them are incredibly funny. Some of them they're all meant to be very serious. He's got a sales character called Mr. Stripey Jacket, but he's just included a brand new one called Grumpy Green Jumper or something like that, who goes around the world telling, making videos. Alistair's talking to himself quite a lot in his office. If you need us to come and help you, just blink twice, Alistair. And he made this one the other day and put it out. Now, it's a light-hearted look at a very serious subject about the fact that there are still lots of people who are saying, I don't like what's happening with the kind of Facebook world that's happening in LinkedIn. Sort of, people showing their picture of their breakfast or a picture of them with their dog on LinkedIn. And some people still say that there's no room for that on this LinkedIn. It needs to be professional, and it needs to be stiff, and it needs to be a jobs board, and you need to just put up brochures of your stuff. So I'm going to play a little bit of Mr. Green Jumper. You won't know because he's a master of disguise. You won't know that he plays all the characters in this. You won't suss that out. But here it is.
Hi all, and welcome back to this week's video. I don't like it. Sorry, what don't you like? I don't like it because it's becoming more like Facebook every day. What is? I've said it before and I'll say it again. LinkedIn is becoming more like Facebook every day. But surely that's a good thing, right? No, I don't like it. I used to like it when I could post my company brochure and then just leave voicemails for people who didn't want to talk to me. This social selling stuff, I don't like it. Is LinkedIn becoming more like Facebook? Do you know what? Since I've come back from Christmas, I think I've had about 8 people tell me that LinkedIn is becoming more like Facebook.
So that's just a little snapshot. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, I said to him on that video, "Is that a giant pot noodle beside you?" And he said, "No, that's actually a replica of." There's a show called NCIS, and there's a lab tech. Anybody a big NCIS fan? I can't remember her name. If Alistair's in there, and she uses that very cup, And that's an exact replica of the cup because he's a big NCIS fan. He's also got, as you've noticed there, a little tribute to Tom Hanks' Castaway. He's got a real proper Wilson. So a modern CEO taking a light-hearted look at a very serious topic, which is social networking and growth on the LinkedIn platform. And I think Alistair sort of represents, he's in his 50s, right? He's in his 50s and he's a CEO, of which we know of many these days, who's actually realized that, okay, he runs a data company, a tech company. He also runs a media company. He's got a studio. He's got a podcast studio, a very successful podcast. He's a very social person, and he lives his life and creates connections and creates influence and creates that relevance that we talk about all through social media. And happily admits that he runs two companies, a media company and his tech company. That is all. Thank you so much. I hope the check's in the post, Alistair.
But you used that expression about another client of yours, didn't you? Where you said that the chief exec said, we're running two companies, a company that does what we do and a company that is a media company.
Yeah,
and without
absolutely.
that, no one knows what we do.
Yeah, and he had that epiphany, a very technical company that do inspection work with fancy drones and stuff like that. He wrote a post about it. It's only just hit him. He had a thunk moment. Trademark. It hit him round the head like a sledgehammer one day when he just stopped and thought, and he said, "We're running a media company. We're running a media company. I'm a CEO of a industrial organization that services power grids and nuclear and oil and gas platforms and all of that. And we had a meeting this morning to talk about our podcast. And we've got another meeting this afternoon to talk about our network growth as a team and what we're doing to address that with content and stuff." So, yeah, it's there's such a strong wind of change out there right now. It's brilliant.
Can I give a try to sharing my? I've not done this yet, so I'm going to give this a see if this will work. Oh boy,
It better not be like Facebook.
Here we go. I'm sharing. Hopefully, you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is Gavin Mcmahon, who's he's a founding partner of a management consultancy called Fast Forward. They focus on here we go. Great. They focus on storytelling and learning design and coaching, leadership development as well. Anyway, I think that kind of toxic corporate culture is one of the things that people are running away from now because they can. And so he offered something that actually Will had mentioned earlier this week. I'm going to be using profanity in this little bit here, so hopefully people will not be too offended. But it's the old shit sandwich. Yay, old shit sandwich, right? You say something nice, and then you give them the filling.
You say something bad, and then you say something nice.
You see, right? Exactly. And what he was offering was a different take on that we really shouldn't be doing that because really everyone knows what they're about to eat. So, so he suggested that the approach is really to help people be part of the team and say, your behavior or whatever it is not helping the team. And if you do this, you'll help the team better. And I think he probably put it better, which is keeping it positive, not talking about a deficiency, but really talking about how you can help the team and helping people to feel included and belong as part of the team as a different approach than, the shit sandwich. So I wanted to share that because I think it's a great idea and much more appropriate for an inclusive and welcoming culture.
Thank you. Yes, it's a lovely piece. Many of us who've worked in the corporate culture will be aware of the shit sandwich.
Oh, great.
So who's going next?
I'd like to, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Please load up your.
I think I have.
You have. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, it moved.
So as it happens, I'm bringing the conversation back to the Great Resignation. The post I want to share this week came from Anthony Parker, General Manager and Regional VP of Sales EMEA at MindTickle. In Anthony's post, he quotes Jake Paul, an internet personality. And the sentiment essentially is that life is too short to spend it pursuing something not linked to passion. In other words, do what you love. A powerful message. And as we've talked about earlier today, COVID's bringing about of the Great Resignation seems to epitomize this sentiment. But when I hear the do what you love mantra, I immediately think of Mike Rowe, the host of the TV show Dirty Jobs. He pushes back on that sentiment with thoughts like, this is terrible advice. There are 100 astronauts in the world? We can't all be astronauts. His mantra is, don't follow your passion, but always bring it with you. So I really believe these two sentiments should be shared as one. Do what you love, and in the meantime, love what you do. If there's anything the lockdown has taught us, it's that our essential workers are not in the most glamorous nor most lucrative jobs. True, there are plenty of nurses, doctors, police, fire, EMTs that go into that line of work because they are passionate about what they do and enjoy helping others. But what about the essential workers that are grocery clerks? I don't know anybody working at the local grocery store who says, my passion in life is to stock shelves and police mask-wearing mandates. But you can appreciate the role you're in, like the grocery clerk who is helping everyone in their neighborhood to find food and stay healthy. And if you cannot find joy in the role itself, look for joy in what the job affords you. I refer to any episode of Dirty Jobs to see an example of this. Gratitude is powerful, and it might just be the spark to drive you towards a job that you love, even if that ends up being the job that you're doing. Mr. GJ, for my out song, can you play Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Love the One You're With?
I love it.
Very good.
Brittany, can you get yours up? Because yours is a video as well, isn't it?
Yes, I will definitely try. So I need to share the window or the Chrome tab to make the video play. The tab, right? I did it wrong last time, so.
Which one is it, Eric, to make the video? She's got.
So I'll just try. I'll try the tab, I think.
Feel the fear.
If it doesn't work, I can speak on it. I've already failed.
You can act it out, can't you? Oh, yeah, here we go.
Okay, so my post of the week is a post by Amy Bullis, and I really enjoy her content. My feed is truly better for her posts. She speaks with such conviction, and she just posts really smart, meaty information. She's the founder and CEO of an executive search firm called Avenue Talent Partners. She partnered with SalesFeed to do some sellertainment on Celoton. So I'll just go ahead and play the time and
your sales goals with Celoton.
Presenter go home. Let's do this, Celoton.
Celoton is the world's first sales trainer that brings the instructors to you.
Like put it in a to-go cup. I don't really care what you need to do. Look into the camera, not down. Into the camera, not down.
No more excuses.
We're doing extensions. We are doing extensions. But wait a second. Do you actually have their extensions? 2 years, 1 month. 2 years, 1 month. 2 years, 1 month.
Just pure motivation.
Guess what? You're only as good as your last deal. We're going to do it all over again next month.
Visit www.celoton.net to discover all the Celoton trainers and learn how you could win a 1-year membership to JD Sales on Demand.
Very, very good.
There's a longer version on the website as well.
Oh, that is excellent.
There
nice.
is.
Well done.
And There's a few things about the post itself of why I wanted to share. Yes, the video is great. Yes, it has a way of standing out. There's a cool like partnership aspect of it. So Amy, along with some other leaders in the space, they've partnered with SalesFeed to do their own. And then also there's just a message that not every post needs to go viral. Like that's not the purpose. If you look at the amount of engagement she's gotten on the post itself, it's just like a really healthy number of like likes and comments, but like genuine followers. So yeah, it might not have 10,000 likes or 10,000 points, but it's just like a really quality engagement that she has on that post.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Tim, I think we've had our very first ever comment from YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, is that the one from Get the Crux?
Get to the crux, yeah. This show is amazing. From YouTube, from the live stream on YouTube. That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's just phenomenal.
We're famous.
It's almost as good as Rob put it. Rob sounded like old Father Time when he said, "I think Jake Paul is an internet personality." One of these newfangled internet personalities.
The what the net?
The interweb, I think they call it.
Adam, do you want to share yours?
Yeah. So this was quite interesting. Tim and I ran a social selling program at a company, and towards the end of that, one of the people that we were coaching left, and they went to start somewhere new. And they'd had a couple of really successful posts, but I've not spoken to this guy for probably 6 months. And then today, out of the blue, I got a message from him saying, "Oh my God, look what's happened to my post." So I don't know if you can see that, but he's had 4,748 likes and 144 comments on this post. And he was just like, "I've waited a long time for this, but check it out. Look what's happening." And it's great. And this is an example of somebody finding a piece of content and then sharing that content with a tiny little bit of narrative, but just something that their audience loves. And as you flagged, Eric, with your video, this is not a corporate brochure. This is something which matters to people, which is completely unrelated to work. And what we do know is that there are now just under 5,000 people that he can drop a message to and try to strike up a conversation with, because there's 5,000 people that have put their hand up and waved at him across the internet. So I think that there's a lesson here for everyone. Keep doing the right things, do them regularly, and you too will get success.
And the third thing, post more Lego.
Yeah, we're all going to post more Lego.
Go and post some more Lego. On that video that you're speaking about, I'm absolutely mortified. I put out that video about qualified relevance, and I got some nice interactions from some people. Then I started getting really weird comments about small eggs. And I realised that I'd made a video which was entitled, "Don't Chase Visibility, Aim for Qualified Relevance." Qualified relevance.
Well,
it's a bit like Arctic Saviour from last night on The Apprentice.
Brilliant. Yeah.
You might need to explain that, Will, to people.
It'll take too long, especially the way that I usually tell things. So yeah, just go on the BBC and watch The Apprentice, and then trying to make some video games, and a serious case of misspelling.
Brilliant. Was there an Arctic? ARTIC? Yeah.
That was the name of their game.
Nice.
And it was set in the Arctic. And then the further mistake they made was they had to rescue penguins, which, as the expert said, there aren't any penguins in the Arctic.
Oh, fabulous.
The machine must have been broken. It's Arctic or Antarctic. And yet they had polar bears, and you don't have polar bears in the Antarctic.
Were there quails there?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, indeed. What a show! What a lovely show it was.
Well,
today.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, we're going to finish up on time. So thank you to Danielle.
Yeah, thank you.
All the interaction. The first message came in from YouTube.
Brilliant.
Amazing,
That person texted me and said they tried to comment on the Twitter live, because we're live on Twitter as well, and unfortunately you can't comment.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
No.
So thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And next week, the guest editor will be Adam, I believe.
Oh, indeed,
Adam.
Don't get your hopes up.
To that.
Don't.
Can you ask us? Can you ask us all the questions via the medium of folk music?
Yes, I can indeed. Foldadiddle-oido.
Today, I will be mostly asking the questions in the form of James Taylor.
We all have to have our fingers in our ears for.
You do, and a pint of real ale in your hand.
Barman, this real ale is a bit warm and it's not got enough twigs in it. Can you stick it in the microwave for me and get it up a few degrees? Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.
See you next week.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.